Anyone who regularly watches this program knows that I have a special bit of hate in my heart for Karoline Leavitt, and I think it is well placed. She is not just bad at her job. She does not just lie poorly, but she does it with such anger and vitriol for the reporters asking truthful questions. And it's not just reporters in the White House press pool. Whenever Karoline Leavitt is confronted, she always gives an angry and lie-filled response. And she did to a student journalist who asked her a question about other fellow students being snatched up by this administration, something happening on my campus as well. And her response was exactly what you would expect when confronted over Donald Trump's illegal plan. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into the question that was asked of Karoline Leavitt, of course, we first need the context, and we're going to get that from Senator Chris Murphy right here.
A young man by the name of Mahmoud Khalil, an immigrant and a legal permanent resident of the United States, is being held right now in prison, even though no criminal charges have been filed against him. And I want to tell you why that should matter to every single American. Khalil is a recent graduate of Columbia University. He opposed Israel's military operation in Gaza. He has deep animus toward Israel's policies and the U.S. support for those policies. He helped organize the protests over Gaza at his university last year. You can disagree with his views or his politics, but there is no evidence he has broken any law. But last weekend, Trump officials entered his apartment and took him into custody. They brought him to a detention facility in New Jersey at first, but when his family went to visit him, he wasn't there. For a while, his family and his lawyer had no idea where he was. They eventually found out that he was being held in a detention facility in Louisiana, and that's where he still is today. In dictatorships, they call this practice being disappeared. No charges, no claims of criminal behavior. The White House doesn't claim he did anything criminal. He's in jail because of his political speech. And here's why everybody should care. In America, your political speech is protected, whether or not the president likes what you say. But today, if you're loyal to Donald Trump, your speech is going to be protected, even if it's hate speech. You can be Marco Ellis, an employee of Doge, who said he, quote, was racist before it was cool, and, quote, normalize Indian hate. And the vice president of the United States will tweet in your defense. But if you are disloyal to Trump, or you're organizing against Trump's political agenda, your speech could be criminalized. You could find yourself in jail. Now, Trump chose to begin by disappearing a Palestinian immigrant, hoping that his place of birth and his immigrant status would just cause people to look the other way. But we cannot, because once it becomes normal for the regime to disappear people simply for protest against the regime's policies, once a citizen or a resident of America can be locked away with no charges against them simply because they protested, there is no going back for America. Even if you're a hardened Trump supporter, this practice should cross the line for you. Even if you disagree with Khalil's views, this practice should cross the line for you. This has nothing to do with supporting Trump. This is about supporting an American value, maybe the most important American value, protecting free speech, even if it's speech you disagree with. If our new reality is that a president can disappear an opposition protester with no charges filed against them, we are not America any longer. Today it's Mahmoud Khalil. Tomorrow.
Now, since that important explainer was posted by Senator Murphy, we have gotten several updates in the case of Mahmoud Khalil, including one that a judge ruled that he could be deported. A Trump judge ruled that he could be deported without cause, without evidence, which the State Department has already made clear in a leaked report they did not have. They didn't have any evidence. They didn't have any reason to abduct, detain, to disappear this student. They just did so because, as we know, is the policy of the Trump administration. They are after intimidation above all else. That's what they're trying to do to students. That's what they're trying to do to judges. That's what they're trying to do to protesters. And Karoline Leavitt was asked about that by a student, and her response is exactly what you would expect.
Thanks, Caroline, for taking the question. I appreciate it. My name is Luke. I'm from Syracuse University. I wanted to ask about an issue that's affecting college students at my campus and on others. We had just this past week 3 students on SU campus have their visas revoked. Foreign students have their visas revoked. What do you say to students on college campuses who are maybe afraid that they or their friends could get swept up in what's happening here and provide some clarity on that issue?
Well, first of all, if they are an American citizen studying at a university, they should not be afraid. And if they are on a foreign visa and they are studying and they are obeying our nation's laws and they are focusing on their degree and they are not engaging in illegal behavior, then they shouldn't worry as well. The revocation of visas is a right that the Secretary of State holds under the Immigration and Nationality Act. And if a visa student, a foreign national who came here with the privilege to study at one of our universities, is acting in an adversarial way to our foreign policy interests, the Secretary of State reserves the right to revoke that privilege for them to come and study at our nation's universities and colleges. And so long as they're not engaging in illegal behavior, they should have nothing to worry about.
Is protesting illegal behavior?
No, but illegal harassment of students on college campuses and engaging in criminal behavior absolutely is illegal. And we want to make sure that we're enforcing our nation's laws.
Thank you.
Sure.
Now, the important point made by Leavitt there, or really lack of point, is she said if students are breaking the law, of course they should have their visas revoked. If they're lying on their visas, of course they should have their visas revoked. But what the Trump administration has already made clear is that they don't care if you are breaking the law. That was a complete lie, what a shock, from Karoline Leavitt. Mahmoud Khalil did not break the law. There was no evidence that he did presented by the Trump administration. Students across the country who have been detained or abducted by masked ICE agents were done so because they wrote op-eds, because they spoke out peacefully on their campuses. It is not about who broke the law. It is about who they can intimidate. That is what's going on here. That is what students are feeling, that there are ICE agents dressed in street clothes patrolling their campuses that make the environment unsafe. That's not what a college campus should be. Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, all these right-wingers have talked so much about how conservatives are being canceled. They can't go on a campus and talk. That's not true. Charlie Kirk has built his entire career off of going to college campuses, debating students. Do you know who can't be on a college campus? Apparently anyone who opposes Donald Trump. Those people are unsafe. And I feel that more and more every day, which is why I'm excited that I'm graduating soon, because I do this show from my dorm, and it seems like, according to the Trump administration, this is breaking the law. They want to detain me for speaking out as a student. Yeah, it seems like that's the case. The thing that Donald Trump warned against that was happening to him, which was never true, the weaponization of the Justice Department, is actually happening against anyone who will oppose him. And Jasmine Crockett talked all about that right here.
Patel has never even been an FBI agent and is now leading the Bureau. Even one of today's Republican witnesses organizations, the Bureau, has advocated having an FBI agent lead the Bureau. But rather than confirm a director with credible, dedicated experience, the Republicans confirmed a political loyalist with no Quantico or FBI training. Talk about DEI. Didn't earn it higher. Another fact, Patel, who rails against telework, what he calls lazy agents, was working part-time in and out of Las Vegas, commuting back and forth between there and DC, while also living in the home of a GOP mega donor. Think about that for a second. Could you imagine what Republicans would have done had, say, James Comey had been living in New York part-time as the FBI director, and if his New York home was owned by, say, George Soros? Speaker Johnson would have forced a floor vote on articles of impeachment within days of this news coming out. But nevertheless, my Republican colleagues are willing to sacrifice safety for stupidity as long as it's loyal. Another fact, Patel and Trump-backed FBI leadership have redirected FBI agents who are working on investigations involving violent crimes against children and child exploitation and transferred them to work on anti-Tesla attacks and redacting Jeffrey Epstein files. Talk about FBI waste and abuse. You simply can't make this stuff up. To be clear, Director Wray testified before Congress last year, noting that, quote, if each one of the FBI's cyber agents and intelligence analysts focus exclusively on the China threat, China's hackers would still outnumber FBI cyber personnel by at least 50 to 1. Yet rather than hire more agents to protect against these cybersecurity threats, Director Patel is reassigning agents to redact Epstein files. Someone please tell me how this makes America safe. It's almost as ridiculous and wasteful as Patel's idea to contract the Bureau with UFC fighters. And while I have very real concerns about the current state of the FBI today, I want to be very clear. My concerns aren't with career agents, the men and women dedicating their lives to protect our country and communities. It's with the irresponsible leadership and reckless decisions coming from Patel, Trump, and Doge staff within the FBI. Our Bureau needs resources to do its job effectively. What it doesn't need is 20-something-year-old Doge bags reviewing materials without having undergone proper vetting and clearance. The American people have a right to be worried, but these worries shouldn't be based on Republican baseless conspiracy theories. Our country is already on a dangerous path, pushing closer to causing irreparable harm. Republican members need to wake up and put Trump loyalties aside to engage in real oversight of the current FBI before it's too late. Congress deserves it. The brave men and women at the Bureau deserve it, and the American people deserve it.
What is happening in Donald Trump's administration should scare us all. But I want to make one important point about the type of speech that he is going after. Donald Trump, of course, is going after anyone who will speak out against him. But really, Donald Trump wants to go after speech that some, even some Democrats, may view as unpopular. The opinions and positions that maybe some in our party disagree with. And if you do, that's understandable. But it is not understandable to then throw those people under the bus, students standing up for human rights, advocating for people oppressed across the world, because you disagree with what they're saying. They too have freedom of speech. And if we allow them to be attacked, to be detained, to be disappeared or deported by the Trump administration, then where does that leave you? First, they come for people that you disagree with, then they come for you. We have to stand up for free speech, especially when it is speech that we disagree with. And we are certainly going to be doing so on this show in calling out the Trump administration's attack on the First Amendment. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.